My name is Maria. Today, I died. On my 26th birthday, my stepsister, brought by my stepmother, pushed me into a swimming pool. My fiancé stood right beside her, watching as I, who couldn't swim, slowly drowned and suffocated. In my dying moment, I heard a voice whisper in my ear, "You have a chance to go back to the past." When I opened my eyes again, there was noise all around me. As my vision cleared, I saw a sea of red and green clothes. Isn't this the ugly school uniform from my high school days? No time to think further, a woman, probably in her 40s, walked in. The midterm results are out, our class did quite well, but... As she spoke, I could clearly feel her gaze land on me. "Some students remain as consistent as ever," she said with a mocking tone, snapping me back to reality. I really was reincarnated? And back to my first year of high school. On the big screen, my name was at the bottom of the list. Except for Chinese, where I barely made it into the 80s, every other subject was a disaster. I was indeed a poor student in high school, yet I was placed in the top class of the city's key school. All because my dad Jason was one of the top 3 successful businessmen in the city. So, despite everyone else scoring about 500 or 600, my barely 300 was untouchable. Except by my teacher, Dora. "Maria, stand up," she demanded. Still not fully recovered from the sensation of drowning and suffocation, and not quite believing everything happening before me, I staggered to my feet and headed for the classroom door. Mumbling to myself, "Is this punishment? Fine, I'll stand in the hallway then." The room fell silent. The teacher hadn't expected me to be so bold. "Maria, what do you think this class is? Get back here now," she shouted. But she was too late. One foot was already over the threshold. Standing at the door was a girl, and we collided head-on. When I saw her, my blood seemed to freeze, and my whole body began to tremble uncontrollably. "Hello, classmate." The girl spoke, but it couldn't warm my icy body. How could I not be terrified? Standing before me was Jasmine. That summer, Jasmine and her mother appeared in my world. And then I lost my kind mother and all of my father's love. Everything I had for the past 16 years was taken away. I was still in a daze when the teacher pulled Jasmine into the classroom. "This is our new classmate. Jasmine, introduce yourself." The girl on the platform timidly opened her mouth to speak, but I walked up to her and slapped her across the face. This slap, held back for 10 years, rang loud and clear. The class gasped, and the teacher quickly pulled me aside. With tears in her eyes, Jasmine covered her face. "Did I offend you?" She looked like a scared little bunny. If I hadn't known her rotten heart, I might have been fooled too. After my mom passed away in my previous life, I realized Jasmine's appearance had been premeditated, so the innocent, tearful Jasmine before me already knew my identity. In my previous life, I was so foolish. I missed the rot beneath her facade and even became her confidant. "Maria, have you lost it? Why did you hit the new student?" the teacher roared. I kept my eyes fixed on Jasmine and sneered. "No reason, I just felt like hitting a bitch." The teacher fumed, and I was inevitably called to the office for a lecture. On the way, my consciousness cleared, and memories flooded back. Last life, in the second half of the first year, Jasmine became my classmate. She seemed frail, barely reaching my chin, and her big, watery eyes were always half-lowered. With my reckless personality, I didn't pay her much mind. But on the day she transferred, I was harassed by some thugs on my way home. She appeared just in time, threatening to call the police, and scared them off. Because of that, I made Jasmine a good friend, protected her in everything, even taking her home to meet my mom. Thinking of my mom, a wave of sadness and suffocation hit me again. While the teacher was still nagging, "You are my student and not at liberty to be so unruly in class." I nodded perfunctorily, but she sincerely added, "Jasmine comes from a single-parent home and has had a tough life. I know you may not understand, but you should learn to respect her." Tough? Me empathize with her? With a murderer? She may not have a dad, but she had a capable mom. Tired of the teacher's rambling, I pretended to admit my mistake. As I left, she sighed, "Maria, you are a good kid, but you should act like a student." I started to think that maybe she wasn't the harsh teacher I remembered at all. Back in the classroom, I found Jasmine seated next to me. She seemed to have forgotten the slap, smiling as she greeted me. I glared at her, kicking her chair leg hard. "Can't you see? Move aside." I was so hostile that she finally dared not speak to me during class. This gave me the chance to think about being reborn. The heavens gave me a second chance, not to bully others, but to live my life stunningly. And, of course, to never let Jasmine get away with anything. The next class was a foreign language. The papers from last month's test were being handed out. My paper was filled with SpongeBob drawings, no proper answers. I couldn't help but facepalm, realizing how immature I was back then. This test was quite difficult. "Can anyone translate this?" the teacher asked. The class went silent. I glanced at the paper, thinking, is it that hard? No one from the top class can do it? Then, I saw it was a simple story. I remembered, after my mom passed in my previous life, I went abroad to escape home. Spanish had become my second native language. "Teacher, I can do it." I raised my hand lightly. Some people in the class started whispering, and even the teacher looked a bit puzzled. "Maria, why don't you give it a try?" I went through the article smoothly, even explaining the multiple meanings of some difficult words. I explained the answers to every fill-in-the-blank question clearly. After all that, the teacher didn't even need to go through it again. It's obvious Maria put in a lot of effort for this article. "Well done." The teacher praised sincerely. Jasmine eyed me carefully. From what she heard, I was supposed to be a clueless slacker. "Teacher, I have a good idea to help everyone learn a second language better. We could give it a try." I had performed so well just now, and I sounded sincere. The teacher seemed a bit swayed. I continued, "How about we have the class teach each other this time, like what I just did?" Before the teacher could respond, I quickly added, "I hear Jasmine is really good at studying. Why don't we let her try the next question?" Jasmine had previously studied in a small town, with almost no foundation in a second language. Hearing my suggestion, she panicked and lowered her head, stammering, "Sorry, teacher, I can't feign surprise, this question is the easiest one." "How can you not know it?" The teacher couldn't help but frown. Rumor had it that Jasmine got into the advanced class through special admission, and she couldn't even answer a simple question. No teacher likes a student who doesn't study well but gets special treatment. I knew this all too well. We're in an advanced class. Besides studying, everything else is just fluff. "Jasmine, you should sit down." The teacher's face clearly showed displeasure. For the rest of the class, Jasmine kept her head down in embarrassment. As for me, I was very enthusiastic in answering questions. It was an extremely satisfying class. So this is what being good at studying feels like. Seeing Jasmine so defeated made me feel incredibly pleased. Evening self-study ended at 9 o'clock. Classmates left one after another, leaving only Jasmine dawdling around. Thinking of what happened today in my past life, I couldn't help but sneer as I left the school. It only took a 10-minute walk from school to home, passing through a long, narrow alley. But today, the lights in the alley were oddly out, leaving the whole path in darkness. A sleazy male voice came from the darkness. A thug appeared in front of me, and with him were 4 sidekicks. I stood still, not flustered at all, even smiling faintly. "I suggest you leave now." He thought I was pretending to be calm. "Feisty, huh? I like that," he said, reaching out to touch my face. Just then, a familiar voice came from behind, "Don't touch her." Jasmine stood at the end of the path, holding her phone. "If you bully my classmate again, I'll call the police." The lines were the same as in my memory. "Jasmine, come here." I beckoned her while walking towards her. When I reached her, I directly grabbed her hand and slapped myself with it. Just at that moment, a black sedan stopped at the entrance of the alley. A man hurried out of the car, pushing Jasmine aside and rushing to me. "Maria." What happened? The thugs scattered in panic, and Jasmine stood there in a daze with tears in my eyes. I looked up at the man in front of me. Dad, I was so scared. I didn't do anything to my new classmate. I don't know why she's bullying me with others. In my past life, Jasmine's best tactic was playing the victim. I was just making sure she had nowhere to go but down her own path. Jason had just left work. He came to pick me up after getting my call. He didn't expect to see his daughter surrounded by thugs and being slapped by someone else before he even got to the school. He looked angrily at the girl beside me, and his anger grew when he saw it was Jasmine. Who taught you to bully my daughter like this? Jasmine waved her hands in denial. Uncle, it wasn't like that. I didn't do it. It was her. You mean my daughter slapped herself? Do you think I'm blind? Jason glared at her fiercely and pulled her aside. I faintly heard him say, I didn't put you in an advanced class to learn bad things. Tell your mom I won't be visiting anytime soon. I knew it. My seemingly dignified father had already started something with that woman by this time. Dad, do you know my new classmate? I asked innocently, looking up at him. Jason's expression became a bit strange. He didn't cover it up well in front of me, his child. Of course, I don't know her, but she bullied you, so I must reprimand her a bit. But she's your new classmate after all. Seeing that he was about to excuse Jasmine, I quickly interrupted, Don't worry, Dad. I'll get along with my classmates. He looked a bit surprised. Maria, you're becoming more considerate. I smiled sincerely, because Maria has grown up now and wants to be a good girl for Dad. Inside, I felt cold and a bit sick. Maria, I've been too busy lately to spend time with you guys. I'll make sure to be around more. Jason's face showed a hint of guilt, but all I felt was disgust. A heart broken for 10 years doesn't know how to hurt anymore. Only revenge could make me feel better. Back home, I passed by the swimming pool that drowned me in my past life. I couldn't help but feel dizzy. The house was still set up the way I remembered. Good, there was no trace of Jasmine here yet. Maria, you're back. A familiar voice called from upstairs. I froze, looking up, waiting as the footsteps grew closer. Until that familiar, gentle face appeared in my sight. My mother, Emily. I couldn't hold back the choking sensation. Seeing her, I dashed up the stairs and hugged her tightly. Mom, I missed you so much. My mom seemed startled. Maria, what's wrong? I kept crying, as if to shed all the tears of my past life. In my past life, even before I graduated high school, Jasmine's mom, Helen, had started coming over frequently to provoke us. Jasmine had won over Jason's favor, and they completely took over our original place in the family. The day I finished my college entrance exams and came home, I saw my mom lying at the bottom of the stairs. On the second floor stood Helen with a victorious look on her face. Your mom fell down the stairs herself. She was so careless, she sneered. My mom didn't even make it to the hospital. She passed away before she could say her last words to me. The ridiculous part was that before my mom's mourning period was over, Helen and her daughter moved into our home, taking over the second floor. I lashed out, yelling and cursing, but all I got was a loud slap from Jason. And then a harsh warning, don't you dare disrespect your Aunt Helen. From now on, we are family. That was when my nightmare of a life began. Years later, Jasmine stole my fiancé. On her wedding day, she told me herself that it was Helen who had pushed my mom down the stairs, and that my dad had known all along. So, I couldn't help myself, I fought with Jasmine, which ended with her pushing me into a swimming pool, where I drowned. Why are you crying like this? Did someone at school bully you? Mom held my shoulders and wiped my tears. My heart was warmed. No one would dare bully your daughter, Mom. I just missed you. Missed me after just one day? Of course, I missed you so much, Mom. I kept cuddling with the woman beside me, soaking in the warmth of her presence. Jason walked over. What are you two crying and laughing about now? He rarely bothered with us. In my last life, on this day, he was probably with Jasmine and her mom. Not even a week later, my mom received a call from Helen, confirming Jason's affair. My mom, soft on the outside but tough inside, had a huge fight with Jason. She was so stressed that it damaged her lungs, leading to constant coughing for the next 2 years. In this life, I've disrupted Jasmine's plans, but I don't know what Helen will do next. I've started studying seriously now and noticed that Jasmine was never a good student. She often couldn't keep up with classes. Even when she attended everything, she didn't understand much. She was quite dumb, honestly. Last life, she depended on my influence to get by in the class, but this life has been much tougher for her. It was supposed to be a regular exercise submission before break. Jasmine, what's going on? Why haven't you turned in your work? The group leader stood before her desk, full of annoyance, looking at her like she was trash. I'm almost done. Just give me a bit more time, okay? Jasmine pleaded, looking pitiful. But using this act on teenagers only brought disdain. I got up slowly, intentionally knocking over a water cup that spilled all over her paper. Oops, looks like you'll have to start over, I said with a mischievous wink. She clenched her fists, ready to explode, but held back and even managed to squeeze out a few tears. Maria, what did I ever do to you? What did she do to me? Now, that's a great question. She had done so much that an entire book couldn't cover it. I leaned into her ear and coldly said, do you know you look like a toad when you cry? She stopped crying immediately, confused about my intentions, but by the next day, Helen showed up at the school gate. She wore a flashy red dress and big sunglasses, looking like a washed-up celebrity. You're Maria, right? She called me affectionately, reaching out to grab me, but I stepped away in disdain. And you are? I pretended not to know her. I'm a colleague of your dad's. I'm here to pick you up. Your dad has dinner with friends today. A colleague? What a joke. Jason was the company president, and she was barely a small-time employee. This never happened in my last life. Looks like my actions have changed the course of events. But that's what I wanted. As long as Helen stayed away from my mom, I had plenty of ways to deal with her. The whole way, Helen tried to cozy up to me, acting like she knew me well. Your father always says you're a good kid. Seeing you today, I like you a lot too. Look at your skin, so fresh and youthful. Auntie is so envious, she flattered me, clearly thinking this was the best way to bond with a young girl. Through the rearview mirror, I saw her hypocritical face and said, Auntie, you're just older. It's normal for your skin to sag. Maybe you should get some injections and treatments. She looked a bit embarrassed. I didn't give her a chance to recover and asked, why would my dad chat about family stuff with a lowly employee like you? I bluntly pointed out the difference in status between her and Jason, which made her inexplicably angry. She got into the company through my dad's influence. Without it, her middle school education wouldn't even get her a janitorial job. In my previous life, after my mom died, she married my dad and naturally became the company owner's wife. Somehow, she even became the company's second largest shareholder. But that share was supposed to be my mom's. If it had to be transferred, it should have gone to me. It's a pity that in my past life, I was too timid and impulsive, which was why this woman bullied me into the dirt. Andy, do you always wear such flashy clothes? My dad hates these bright colors. But I can't blame you. Have you ever heard this saying, Auntie? The poorer someone's psyche is, the more they like to dress gaudily to make up for it. I made fun of her without giving her any face, but I still wore the most innocent and harmless expression. How can you talk like that? I'm still your elder. She looked a bit annoyed. After all, being around my dad for so long, she really thought she was something. I found it amusing. Then I said, what kind of elder are you to me? You're just a small employee at my dad's company, so stop pretending. Maria. She couldn't help but yell at me. The car slowly stopped at the restaurant entrance, and Jason quickly came over when he saw me in the back seat. Maria, why are you late? I got out of the car with a guilty look. Dad, I think I accidentally offended this lady just now. I really didn't mean to. Helen's face was still angry, but when she saw Jason, she quickly put on a gentle expression. It's nothing. Kids can't have malicious intentions. Really, Auntie? But you just said you were my elder and told me to speak to you with more respect. I continued. Elder? Jason caught this sensitive word. When he looked at Helen, there was an unmistakable sharpness in his eyes. No, I didn't say that, I just... Enough. You can go back to the company. You're not needed here. Jason interrupted her and turned around, pulling me away. Behind us, Helen bit her lip, looking red-eyed but not daring to say a word. I knew too well what my father was like. He was hypocritical, power-hungry, and never trusted anyone easily. His authority couldn't be challenged by anyone, especially those around him. If they couldn't comply, they'd be abandoned. So when Helen and Jasmine showed even a trace of greed in front of him, he'd loathe them 100 times more. When I saw Eric in the restaurant's private room, I realized something was wrong. In my past life, Jason didn't introduce him to me until my sophomore year of high school. Later, our families got closer, and I grew increasingly attached to him until I fell hopelessly in love. But now I'm just a freshman. How could he appear so early in this life? Eric still looked like that phony distant beauty in my memory. In my previous life, I was infatuated with him for 2 years, and we even got engaged. After my mom passed away, he was my only beacon of hope. Even though he never formally responded to my love and was always indifferent to me. But later, he got entangled with Jasmine and cruelly told me it was my fault he couldn't marry the woman he loved. When I saw him and Jasmine lying together in a hotel bed, my heart hurt so much I could hardly breathe. So I quickly broke off the engagement, but I never imagined even my self-sacrificing gesture wouldn't earn his kindness. In the deserted garden after the engagement party, he let Jasmine, his fiancée, push me, who couldn't swim, into the pool, and watched me drown. Maria, someone like you should have died long ago. Those cruel words echoed in my ears until they merged with the man in front of me. Hi, I'm Eric. Hi, I'm Maria. Please take care of me. I sweetly smiled and shook his hand, noticing the flash of amazement in his eyes. In my past life, I actually realized why he chose Jasmine over me. After my mom died, I became too clingy, treating him like my only lifeline, not realizing that lifeline was a poisonous vine. Eric was a crucial player in my misery until my death. Maria, didn't you know? Eric goes to your school. If you ever need help, feel free to ask him. Eric quickly added, I'll take care of Maria. I felt a surge of cold mockery in my heart. I should be taking care of you, Eric. There's a long road ahead. I'll take good care of you. The entire meal was tasteless, my mind preoccupied with how to resolve my mom's emotional wounds. Jason's affair was a fact that couldn't be changed, but I didn't want to see Mom get hurt again. A week later, it was the midterm exams. Last time I was at the bottom of the class, but this time I jumped straight into the top 30. My math still needed improvement. Even though I'd studied hard for the past 2 months, I only managed to score 90. I glanced at Jasmine, and as expected, her name was at the bottom of the class list. Everything seemed to be moving in the direction I wanted. My grades were up, Mom was still alive, and Jasmine and her mother could stir up nothing for now. But when I got home, before I opened the door, I sensed something unusual inside. Suddenly, I heard the sound of things being smashed. Mom was sitting on the sofa with her eyes closed, speaking in a pained voice. Jason, you want a divorce? What was meant to happen couldn't be avoided. Mom still learned about his affair. I went inside, grabbed the pre-prepared medicine from my room, and quickly brought it to her with some water. Mom, please don't get upset. Take the medicine first, okay? Maybe I was too calm, so she obediently took the medicine and followed me upstairs. I looked back at Jason. Even though I hated him to the core, I still pretended to comfort him. Dad, I'll talk to Mom. It wasn't the time to break ties with Jason yet. I couldn't let Mom go through the same thing again. My attitude calmed Jason down. He stormed out like he thought of something. Tonight, Helen wouldn't have a peaceful night either. Mom was sitting on the bed, staring off into space. When she saw me come in, the first thing she said was, "Maria, are you hungry?" I couldn't hold back the tears. I went over and hugged her. "Mom, don't worry. I'll always be here with you. You knew about it already, didn't you?" She was smart and knew me well. She suspected my recent good behavior was related to this. I nodded. Tears welled up in her eyes, and my always gentle and elegant mom cursed, "That bastard Jason, showing this ugliness to you." Even now, she put me first. "Mom, I've grown up." I handed her a cup of warm water. In our past lives, Helen and Jasmine had ground us down. I'd forgotten my mom could be so strong. "Mom, look at this. I did really well this time." I pulled out my report card. I was in 6th place. "How did you improve so much?" She was puzzled but quickly became happy. "Mom, it feels like I've had a breakthrough in my studies. These problems seem easy now. So those dirty life issues, they'll be easy for us too, right?" Her eyes reddened, and her strong facade crumbled. She covered her mouth and wept quietly. "Maria, you're too young to know about these things." She gently brushed the hair off my forehead. "Don't worry, darling. I won't let anyone bully you." In my past life, Jasmine had already wormed her way into our family, winning my dad's heart with his support. Helen was arrogant enough to call my mom directly. This time, Helen timed an intimate message to Jason perfectly so my mom would see it. Luckily, I was there to stop my mom's fury. Jason might be an idiot, but even he could see through Helen's ambition. The next day, Jasmine came to school as usual, looking pleased with herself. She even looked down on me. I called Jason's office and found out he wasn't there, nor was Helen. After school, I saw a car picking up Jasmine. I recognized it. It was from Jason's company. I wanted to follow her, but ran into Eric instead. "Maria, I heard your grades have improved a lot. Congrats." I wasn't interested in him. I just wanted to catch up with Jasmine, but he kept talking. "I heard you struggle with math. Need any help?" In my past life, Jason set him up to tutor me, and I fell for him during that time. I was about to refuse but then changed my mind. Mindy smiled sweetly and agreed. "Sure, I'd appreciate that." Thinking deeply, only a few things could move Jason so much. One was Helen's pregnancy with a boy. Jason had wanted a son for years, enough to forget all unhappiness. Helen miscarried last time due to a dog allergy. It wasn't anyone's fault. Karma, they say. A dog just brushed by her, causing a reaction and the miscarriage. But this was an opportunity for my revenge. 3 days later, Jason finally remembered to come home. He was excited, forgetting he'd just been caught cheating. Mom stood upstairs watching him. "Jason, we need to talk." An argument erupted. He didn't seem to care about being caught. He only said, "I want a son." "The woman's pregnant?" Jason nodded, then softened. "Emily, she won't take your place. After the boy is born, she'll leave." "How's that?" In our past life, he didn't think about divorce until after my mom passed. He had too much pride to marry a mistress. Helen wanted to replace us so badly, she resorted to murder Jason. "You're insane." Seeing Mom's rage, I quickly rushed in. I brought the prepared tea to the next room. Jason looked guilty when he saw me. "Maria, why are you here?" "It's the weekend," I said simply. "Mom, drink this." Jason said one last thing, "I'll be busy and won't be back for a while." "Emily, think about it. I'll be waiting for your answer." After he left, I asked Mom quietly, "You'll divorce him, won't you?" She hesitated. "What about you if we divorce?" "Mom." My passion flared. "You not divorcing hurts me more." Maybe my urgency struck her. She remained silent for a while, then lifted her chin determinedly. "I'll divorce him. I can't let you be hurt." It didn't take much to make her decide. The next day, Mom wore her business suit and headed to the company. Since I was born, she'd given up her managerial role. The company seemed to be Jason's, but Mom owned 30%, only 10% less than Jason. Before leaving, she playfully ruffled my hair and asked, "Maria, what have you been giving me to drink?" "It feels soothing, just some throat tea," I answered with a smile. The recipe was from her battle with lung disease in my past life. I'd memorized it after a year of use. After seeing her off, I checked my phone. Eric's message popped up, "Maria, I'll be waiting in the music room for evening study." I replied with an emoji and grabbed my backpack, heading to school. Today is Monday. I rushed into the classroom right as the first bell rang for morning readings. Jasmine was buried in a pile of books, pretending to study. But I could clearly see she was chatting on her phone. The person on the other end had Jason's Instagram profile picture. When I stood over her screen, a message came through, "After class, Uncle will send someone to pick you up and take you to the hospital. You need to study hard, got it?" Jasmine replied, "Thank you, Uncle. Jasmine won't disappoint you." I couldn't help but scoff. These two are quite the actors, both mother and daughter. "Maria, why are you standing there? Class has started, sit down." The teacher's voice snapped Jasmine back to reality. She looked up and our eyes met. Startled, she quickly put away her phone. "Jasmine, I heard from the teacher that you're from a single-parent household," I said after I sat down. I had never spoken kindly to her before, so she was taken aback. Then, she put on a pitiful expression, "Even though I'm from a single-parent household, I never feel like I'm less than anyone else." No wonder I was deceived by her when we were kids. "If that's the case, then why are you playing with your phone in class?" I mocked. She blushed instantly and mumbled an excuse, "Because my mom is in the hospital, so." I cut her off. "The teacher said I've made great progress recently and wants me to help students with poor grades. Although I don't have experience in tutoring, there is a senior who can teach me math. You can come and join us." I added, "You probably know him, his name is Eric." When I mentioned Eric's name, Jasmine's eyes lit up instantly. She agreed immediately, "I'd love that. Thank you, Maria." Helen and her daughter have always had the same mindset, trying to marry up to change their social status. Melodies flowed from the music room. When I opened the door, there was Eric, seriously playing the piano. The handsome boy bathed in sunlight did look like the male lead of a teen drama, but I only felt disgust when I saw him. On the other hand, Jasmine was staring at him, blushing. She had dressed up today, with her hair loose over her shoulders and a light touch of makeup. She did look quite charming. Eric looked up, his gaze shifting from me to her, clearly impressed. Exactly what I wanted. Eric had been ordered by his dad to win my favor, for the sake of our family's future union. But I've never been his type. He wasted a year on me and ended up getting close to Jasmine. In this life, I'll tie them together openly, saving them from sneaking around Eric. "This is my classmate Jasmine. We're here to learn from you, you don't mind, right?" I said sweetly, acting close. "Your classmate is my friend." "Of course, I don't mind," Eric said without taking his eyes off Jasmine. In a math tutoring session, I became the third wheel. Eric patiently taught Jasmine math problems, completely ignoring me. Jasmine played along coquettishly, "I have so many questions." "You're so smart, I'm sure you don't mind helping, right?" "I've learned enough for now." "Since you have so many questions, you can study on your own here." I stood up to leave the room. Before I left, I took the keys and locked the door behind me. On the third day, Jasmine approached me with a shy but accusing look. "Maria, why did you lock the door? Do you know Eric and I were locked in here until midnight before someone let us out?" I coldly replied, "Oh," not wanting to engage. She seemed proud as she tilted her chin. "Eric said our foundations are different, so he will tutor me alone." She thought mentioning Eric would make me jealous, but she didn't know it was all part of my plan. Recently, Mom has been running to the company every day, looking more anxious by the day. I could almost predict what was happening. In my last life, during my sophomore year, Jason's company had a huge crisis. It turned out they had been evading taxes for years and finally got reported. Jason nearly lost half of the company before stabilizing it. Mom is an auditor. Seeing her stay at the company these days, she must have noticed the financial discrepancies. Mom, today in class the teacher told us about a local news story. I handed her a cup of cold tea. She seemed distracted but remained gentle with me. I continued, there was a celebrity who got caught evading taxes and went to jail because they couldn't pay up. Mom's expression changed when she heard this. She looked pensive. Maria, lately? I quickly brushed it off. It's final season, the teacher just wanted to lighten the mood with some stories. But Mom, isn't tax evasion a big deal? We should be careful. I turned and went back to my room but saw her expression change multiple times before she finally calmed down. Mom, I hope this time you make the right choice. Lately, Jasmine has been dressing up more, constantly checking herself in the mirror during class. She has been studying with Eric for over 2 months. I had no idea how far things had gone between them. Jasmine, how are your studies with Eric going? I asked. The girl next to me looked proud for a moment but quickly put on a modest front. He's very patient, but I'm too slow. I might need more tutoring. I smirked inwardly but pretended to care. You might not know, my dad and Eric's dad are close, so Eric and I are naturally close too. We might even. I saw a flash of cold jealousy in her eyes, almost uncontrollable anger. I continued, Eric is really amazing, isn't he? We're quite a match next semester. He graduates, so he can probably only tutor you for another month. You should make the most of it. I spoke gently, almost like advising her. Even though she knew I disliked her, she didn't pick up on my hidden intention. I need to go to the restroom, she said, clutching her phone as she left her seat. I followed her quietly and heard her in the bathroom stall on the phone. Eric, what's really going on between you and Maria? She was sniffling, and he comforted her for a long time. Eventually, she calmed down. Eric, please don't lie to me. You're the only one I care about. Though just a high school girl, she spoke like someone much older. I knew Jasmine well, which is why I framed my words to provoke her. When she returned, she looked pale but smug. I acted clueless and said, I asked Eric to come over this weekend to tutor. Do you want to join? She had already decided to come but pretended to be polite and asked, is that appropriate? I nodded quickly and told her, I was mean to you before, take this as my apology. Just a high schooler, after all. Not mature enough to read through an adult like me. On my way home from school, I detoured to a pet store before heading back. When I got home, Mom was sitting on the couch, looking exhausted while reading some documents. She brightened up as soon as she saw me. I noticed 2 photos tucked in her documents. It was Helen and her daughter. Anything happening at school? She asked cautiously. I knew she was asking about Jasmine. Since she knew, there was no need to hide. I told her Jasmine was brought to school by Jason and revealed she was actually Helen's daughter. He dared put that woman's daughter around you. She stood up abruptly. Actually, it wasn't like Jason arranged it on purpose. It was Helen's greed. She wanted her daughter to live better and maybe confuse me, the rightful daughter. Mom, don't worry. I'm fine. But how do you know all this? She finally realized this was beyond what a high school student could find out. I made up a reason, saying I saw Jasmine with some thugs, and overheard her talking to Jason when he passed by. That girl dared to bully you? Mom was completely enraged. This usually gentle woman was furious. I was thinking of something to calm her down, but she composed herself. A trace of icy sarcasm flitted across her face. Maria, Mom is working on something important lately. You? Mom, I support you, no matter what you're doing. On the weekend, Mom left for work early. Soon, Eric and Jasmine arrived together. The subtle tension between 2 teens can't escape an adult's eyes. I suppressed my disgust and hugged Eric's arm, warmly saying, Eric, I've been waiting for you. Separated, Jasmine looked unhappy. Eric was puzzled by my sudden closeness. The entire morning, I stuck to him, even feeding him fruit. I kept emphasizing one point. Eric, my dad said we should spend more time together since we're going to. I trailed off, lowering my blush-red face, leaving room for imagination. With my show of intimacy, Eric didn't dare refuse, and Jasmine was furious. I found an excuse to leave the room and dialed a long-forgotten number. "Hello, who is this?" came Helen's voice. I faked anxiety and sadness. "Aunt Helen, do you know where my dad is? I can't reach him." "You're his secretary. Can you help me find him?" Before she could ask how I got her number, someone grabbed the phone. Jason's voice followed. "Maria, what's wrong? Don't panic, speak slowly." I burst into a sob. "Dad, Eric, he doesn't like me. He likes my classmate. They're together now in our house." I deliberately stopped short, leaving room for speculation. Jason thought it was something serious. He was confused until I mentioned Jasmine. He was silent for a couple of seconds before Helen butted in. "Impossible. She wouldn't dare." Jason exploded. "She dares bully my daughter. There's nothing she wouldn't dare." Then he asked, "They're home now, right?" "I'm coming over." After hanging up, I pulled up the bedroom surveillance on my iPad. Eric and Jasmine were cozying up. Jasmine even started crying, while they spoke sweet nothings, unaware it was all recorded. In less than 10 minutes, Jason stormed in with Helen, her belly noticeably rounded. Just as expected, Jasmine was outed, and her mom couldn't ignore it. I sadly led Jason to the bedroom. Eric and Jasmine were staring into each other's eyes, about to do something inappropriate. The worst part was Eric's bold words. "Jasmine, don't worry. Maria is nothing compared to you. You're the only one I like." Jason yanked them apart. Helen was shocked, leaning against the table. But my eyes were fixed on two felted dolls on the table. In the chaos, I slipped them into Helen's pocket. Then Mom returned. "Jason, how dare you let them into our home?" Everyone from my previous life gathered in this room, leaving me awash with feelings. Eric tried to explain, "I'm here to tutor Maria. We're classmates." Jason ignored him, slapping Jasmine. "You slut." Jasmine ruined his plan to pair me with Eric. He was furious. Helen tried to shield her daughter but was shoved aside, ending up on the floor. Mom and I stood at a distance, witnessing the farce unfold. Soon, Helen was clutching her belly in agony, struggling. "My stomach hurts." Jason picked her up, his hand stained with blood. By the time the ambulance arrived, Helen had passed out from the pain. I felt a wave of satisfaction and turned to see my mom's teary eyes. "Mom, what's wrong?" I hugged her, worried. Her voice was hoarse. "Maria, I don't want you involved in this mess. Mom can handle it." "Handle everything? What exactly?" That day, Helen was taken away, and Eric slunk back home. When Mom spoke those words, I saw pain and conflict in her eyes. She shouldn't suspect it was my setup to her. "I'm just a child." "Mom, what are you talking about?" She just shook her head and left the house. Helen's baby was definitely lost. After all, the toy I put in her pocket was made of pure dog hair felt. But Jason thought it was Jasmine and Eric who made her miscarry. Jasmine's face was swollen from his slaps, yet it couldn't calm his rage over losing his son. "Uncle, it wasn't me. It was Maria who called me to your house for tutoring. You're still dragging my daughter into this? Was it my daughter who made you and Eric act so improperly?" When Mom and I arrived at the hospital, this is what we saw. I felt a rush of satisfaction, knowing that after this, no matter what Jasmine did, she wouldn't win Jason's heart back. But Mom was unusually calm, which worried me. Faced with Helen and her daughter, she never said much. Even Jason started to feel a bit ashamed. "Emily, have you made up your mind? The baby's gone. What's there to consider?" Mom's voice was cold and serene. "Or were you hoping I'd accept this woman and let two women serve one man?" Helen slowly came to and immediately put on her innocent act. "I didn't mean that. I just love Jason. I don't need any status. But Mom just chuckled coldly. It's not your turn to speak yet. Why does Mom seem so decisive and formidable now? In my memory, she was always gentle and kind. But I felt relieved by her decisiveness. Finally, she wouldn't torture herself because of someone else's mistake. Then she pulled out a document, divorce papers. Sign them. Jason was instantly panicked. He never expected his obedient wife to be so determined. He wasn't clinging to my mom, he was clinging to the 30% stake in the company. I am not getting a divorce. Jason tore the papers into pieces. But Mom wasn't moved. She laughed coldly. Jason, I gave you a chance. After we left the hospital, she reverted to her gentle demeanor, the one I remembered. Maria, don't do anything unnecessary, leave the rest to me. Her eyes seemed to see right through me, making me think of the bottle of potion hidden in my backpack. I had prepared it a month in advance, planning to use it on Eric and Jasmine. They killed me in my last life. How could I live without making them pay? Mom, what are you talking about? I don't understand. I smiled sweetly. I don't want you to get your hands dirty. She frowned, stroking my hair. But her eyes grew more complicated, and I couldn't understand why. What had changed? But my mind was made up. There was no changing it. From the moment I saw Eric again, I had fantasized countless times about him falling in front of me. But the first to fall should be Jasmine. With the potion ready in my hand, Jasmine went to the restroom, leaving her water cup within reach. I hesitated for only a second before pouring the potion in. It was a tasteless, odorless poison I had studied in my past life. It wouldn't kill her immediately, but it would slowly rot her from the inside afterwards. I exhaled deeply. This was the most reliable way to kill I could think of. But before I could see Jasmine drink, the teacher called me. Maria, don't be scared. Life changes quickly. Your family's issues won't affect you. She spoke oddly, and then I learned that Jason had been jailed for tax evasion. Only then did I understand that this was Mom's plan all along. Soon after, she called me, Maria, come home. Mom has something to tell you. Mom had already prepared a big meal. The company's shares were transferred to my name before Jason went to jail. Once I turned 18, I could inherit them legally. As for Helen, no need to worry about her. She embezzled plenty as Jason's secretary. Prison awaits her too. Jasmine probably won't show up at your school anymore. Eric's family company will go under too. I've handed their money laundering records to the authorities. They won't last long. One by one, like she was reporting back to Maine 3 months, she not only dealt with Jason but also took down everyone who wronged me in my past life, leaving no stone unturned. I stared at her, dumbfounded. She placed a shrimp in my bowl. You love shrimp. Try this. The pink shrimp was mixed with almonds. Suddenly, it all clicked. A flood of thoughts rushed through my mind. This dish used to be called cashew shrimp. In my senior year, I choked on a cashew and had to go to the hospital. After that, Mom always used almonds. But now, I was just in my freshman year. I hadn't choked on a cashew yet. Mom. My voice trembled, fearing to startle her. Mom, you're back too, aren't you? I shouted, holding my breath, my heart racing. She smiled softly, and put another dish in my bowl. She lowered her head and said, Maria, Mom missed you so much. Rain pattered outside as my tears fell too. Mom, I missed you too. You have no idea how much. I was so scared after you left. I flung myself into her arms, crying like a child, releasing all the pain from those 10 years. No wonder her personality had changed so drastically, why she kept telling me not to interfere. She found out about Jason's tax evasion in 3 months, even though she hadn't handled finances in over a decade. Her eyes always seemed conflicted. Why was she so worried I'd dirty my hands? I drowned that day and came to this world. At the moment on the stairs when I hugged Mom, she came to this world too. In that moment of transition, she saw her daughter's lonely future after she left. She saw me bullied by Helen and her daughter, saw Eric and Jasmine drowning me. She came here with a mission, to protect me. Mom, I still killed someone. I remembered the poison I gave Jasmine before leaving school. Mom just smiled, and patted my head. I switched it. I'd never let you make such a mistake. In my past life, Mom fell ill with pneumonia because of Helen. Even then, she stopped me from poisoning them, though she could hardly leave her bed. Maria, you should live a bright and happy life. You're my daughter. A month later, the tax evasion and money laundering case went to trial. Jason was sentenced to 7 years, Helen to 3. Eric's family company collapsed. Burdened with debt, he dropped out of school. Jasmine returned to her hometown. Her greedy grandmother arranged a marriage for her. 2 years later, Mom became the legitimate CEO of the company and a renowned businesswoman. And I got into a top university in the country with the 3rd highest score in my school. Our lives were just beginning.